Kia ora Aotearoa, welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs, beam live from the palatial Stratus News bunker, buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show was an opinion poll for MediaWorks, up to $43 million, I'd expect it to show John Key 50 points ahead. In tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone, music pirates need to be tackled with as much urgency as a Christchurch earthquake. Coming to a movie theatre near you, a chilling post-apocalyptic futuristic thriller, Joyce's Run, where university students whose loans glow red attempt to outrun Stephen Joyce before his debt collectors catch up with them. Jerry Brownlee has sold our oceans for some magic beans from Petrobras. Can someone please tell Jerry that there are no such things as magic beans? Plus this week's Sex and the Silver City, Wanko of the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week Award. Leading the War on News this week, brothers and sisters, Simon Power stood down last week from his role as Minister of State-Owned Enterprises because of a conflict of interest. Far be it for me to suggest the mainstream media are a lazy, stupid, one-eyed mutant who slavishly carry out the whims of its corporate masters, kind of like Smeagol minus the charm. But shouldn't anyone question what is the conflict of interest that is forcing Simon Power to hand in his ministerial warrant? He was the Minister for State-Owned Enterprises, the very same state-owned enterprises National intend to privatise if they win the next election. Ladies and gentlemen, is the former minister about to work for one of his previous assets that are about to be privatised? Wouldn't that be like the corporate pimp becoming the corporate prostitute, all at the expense of the public tax-paying John? If there are conflicts of interest with his next job, and seeing as he has been privy as a minister to the valuation of these state-owned assets about to be sold, shouldn't we, the public, know what his next job is now so that we can decide if there is a conflict of interest before the election? Brothers and sisters, speaking of prostitutes that swallow, Simon Power's conveyor belt of pet food grade cheap justice, which degrades most of your civil liberties in the largest rollback of legal protections this country has ever witnessed, looks like it is justice for only the very, very, very rich. To be eligible for legal aid now in this country, you need to earn $100 less per week than the minimum wage, meaning only part-time workers and the unemployed could ever get legal aid. Whānau, I know you all love John Key's smile and wave, but robbing you all of vast legal civil liberties without a whisper is kind of like not bothering to pick your kids up at school, oversight at best, outright neglect at worst. How can we endorse a legal system minus the legal protection, checks and balances that makes it a justice system, all based on nothing more than gossip Dame Margaret Baisley heard behind the Law Society bike sheds? These erosions of jury trials and not facing your jury are a legal conveyor belt focused on speed rather than justice. By denying people the right to select their lawyer from legal aid, we erode their quality of justice. And let's not forget people have to pay legal aid back. This is money you are paying for a legal service, yet you no longer get the right to select your lawyer. No one wants to use the public defence service, so the government are forcing people to use them. Think about that. You require legal aid, you are told it will mean a caveat is placed on your house. Oh, and they will select the cheapest public defender they can track down from a service that doesn't receive any current confidence from citizens. Funny how a free market government is now suddenly focused on forcing everyone to use public services, isn't it? Only rich people have the audacity to force poor people to accept such limited legal protections. We do everything casual in New Zealand, including fascism. Brothers and sisters, with a tsunami of right-wing bullshit being rammed through Parliament with no oversight because John Key's massive smile and wave political capital means we'll privatise our grandmother's ovaries if John wants them, let's ask the top 10 political questions right now. 10. Are a collective of Damien O'Connors called a murder of breeders? 9. When MediaWorks boss Brent Impey met John Key at the telethon and John reversed MED advice and said yes to the $43 million loan to Ironbridge at a rate they couldn't obtain on the open market, did Brent sing thank you very much for your kind donation? 8. Has someone told the Minister for Broadcasting that $43 million loan to a foreign-owned media company could have run TVNZ7 for 6 years. 7. Can someone tell Greg O'Connell that the other police force who arrest artists for songs they didn't like are run by Gaddafi? 6. How bad are things when even the New Zealand Herald noticed them? 5. Have the Labour Party finished self-mutilating themselves yet? Oh, they haven't. 4. If KiwiSaver interest-free student loans and working for families are nice-to-haves, what are the $1,000 optional extra seat warmers in the 34 luxury BMWs? 3. Can Simon Power's pet food grade conveyor belt of cheap justice save even more money by just finding anyone earning under $35,000 automatically guilty? 2. Isn't claiming that we are more competitive than Australia by having 30% lower wages a bit like claiming we are dealing with unemployment by having a high suicide rate? 1. If AMI is too big to fail, what is public education? To the headlines, whānau. Music pirates need to be tackled with as much urgency as a Christchurch earthquake. Whānau, this government has overseen the largest dismantling of democratic oversight we've ever experienced since Roger Douglas wrote his love sonnets to Milton Friedman by ramming through more law under a misuse of urgency than any other government in modern times. After only 2 years, National have used urgency 31% of the time. That's a lot of urgency. Urgency is supposed to be used if there is a glaring mistake in law. It allows Parliament to circumvent democratic process for an immediate emergency. It is not supposed to be used to ram any old bullshit the government wants passed through at any time they think the public isn't paying attention. The way National did by tacking the copyright infringing file sharing amendment bill onto the back of legislation to deal with the Christchurch earthquake that gave Jerry Brownlee the power of God. Giving Jerry Brownlee responsibility for anything is in itself a moment to pause in horror. But tagging on powers to disconnect your internet in a setting where you are guilty until proven innocent, all for the benefit of the movie and music industry, is more self-interested than John Key checking himself out naked in the mirror. National Party MP Jonathan Young claimed we needed these new powers to cut you off from the internet within a setting where you are guilty until proven innocent, all for the benefit of corporate music and corporate movies, was because the internet was like Skynet. You'll remember Skynet. That was the fictional self-thinking computer from the Terminator movie that declared war on human beings by launching a nuclear first strike against humanity. So we need to ram through law under a misuse of urgency where you can have your internet cut off in a setting where you are guilty until proven innocent, all for the benefit of corporate movies and corporate music, to prevent the internet from becoming self-aware and launching nuclear weapons against us, do we? Whānau, I've heard some pretty crazy shit from the right wing to justify their vast erosion of our civil liberties, but to claim computers will become self-aware and attack us unless we urgently pass legislation to stop people downloading the latest song by Britney Spears is a little like asking for anal sex on the first date. Sure, you can ask, but we're both going to feel cheap and whorish afterwards. Isn't it funny, folks? In 2008, New Zealanders threw out Helen Clark because she was leading the stormtroopers of the nanny state dichocracy into your homes to force you into using water-saving shower heads and power-saving light bulbs. Yet this government strips away your right to jury trials, passes laws making you guilty before innocent, and slashes public welfare while handing out corporate welfare, and not a whisper. Who knew that all National had to do to keep you Shire Volk stupid and uninformed was a whole lot of smiling and waving from an out-of-touch, medicatedly optimistic boy in a bubble multi-millionaire? Moving on with the headlines, whānau. There is nothing as odious as a baby boomer lecturing a Gen Xer about repaying student loans. Here comes Joyce's Run, a sci-fi horror movie where uni students with debt that glows red attempt to outrun Stephen Joyce's hitmen. How predictable and how very terribly boring. How about an amnesty to tempt our best and brightest Gen Xers back to New Zealand rather than bankrupting them for debt they should never have been burdened with in the first place? Why not offer an amnesty to student loan defaulters and tempt them, their skills and their contacts back home to New Zealand? Why threaten to bankrupt them, and why close off education to those over 50 who may be retraining due to the recession? Why make public education even more difficult to obtain rather than invest in it properly and reduce the total amount students need to borrow by introducing universal student allowances? This nasty little piece of counterproductive bullshit will be supported because any New Zealander who manages to gain the ability to escape the gravitational pull of New Zealand gets a certain amount of resentment visited upon them. Stephen Joyce could suggest student loan defaulters have hot coals placed upon their genitals, and the New Zealand Herald would still write an opinion piece claiming the minister was being too soft. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. Jerry Brownlee has sold us more magic Petrobras beans. Yay! Whānau, isn't it hilarious that everyone thought the Foreshore and Seabed Bill was all about white people being able to gain access to the beach, when really it was always about providing multinationals with legal certainty? Don't you love that? How good is the Minister for Mordor and Masochism, Jerry Brownlee's oversight when it comes to protecting New Zealand rather than Petrobras' interests? Pretty shitty if you ask me. Will we, like Canada, demand relief wells dug first? Of course not. Jerry tells us the voluntary code of best practice will look after us. Really? A voluntary best practice code is all that Jerry will implement. Jerry's press secretary knows that best practice unfortunately has the same initials as BP, right? If Jerry's vision of a watertight voluntary code that will protect us from oil spills and will be so carefully scrutinised that all the I's are dotted and all the T's crossed is so certain, then why the hell weren't local iwi even consulted over the Petrobras contract? Jerry's eagle-like vision to assure us the drilling deal will be safe couldn't even manage to remember to talk to local Māori about this arrangement. We get a measly 5%, while Petrobras takes 95%, and the most we could fine them for, if something goes wrong, is $200,000. Mr. Brownlee, take these magic beans from Petrobras back to market and return our cow, you clown. I swear this is the last time we ever send you out alone to negotiate anything ever again. Could you have gotten a worse deal, Jerry? 5%! Why don't you give them a bloody foot massage, tickets to a show, and dinner while you're at it, Jerry? They write for socks and undies, love? You are risking our coastline with a deep-sea drilling operation we get a measly 5% from, and the most we can fine them for, if it all goes horribly wrong, is $200,000? Whānau, it's not Greenpeace who should be getting arrested for this. Whānau, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex and the Super City time. Lot of anger displayed, brothers and sisters, about this $2 million plastic walker that will be used to house very important people for very important things as a venue during the Rugby World Cup. The comments haven't been nice. Shane Jones called it a tupper walker. Talkback Radio made the kind of comments your drunk old uncle makes at Christmas about Marys that curdle the custard. And Heather Roy from ACT phoned that the money spent on the plastic walker could have been spent on 51 hip replacements, 31 hernia operations, 41 grommet operations, and 116 cataract operations. Whānau, I'm not angry about the $2 million plastic walker. At least there is some functionality for a venue shaped like a walker. What I'm pissed about is the $12 million blown on the bloody massive plastic rugby ball. What sort of resale value is on that monstrosity? With a plastic walker, there's at least some reuse after the event. Who is going to buy a $12 million used plastic ball after the Rugby World Cup? Isn't it interesting? $2 million on a plastic walker has Heather Roy costing out surgery. 12 million on a bloody giant rugby ball and no criticism whatsoever. Wah, wah. Whānau, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Wanko of the Week award has to go to our authority-worshipping culture and the jury decision to allow Martin James Follen to walk free from multiple allegations of prisoner bashings. We all knew Follen would be found not guilty. No New Zealand jury finds cops guilty unless they are drunk, off duty and beating the snot out of a detective's son. It didn't matter that 9 other bloody cops testified against this guy and that a crushed testicle had to be amputated. Our police worshipping culture can see only sunshine and daffodils out of a cop's ass. We've been brought up in a non-questioning diet of heavily edited reality TV that shows our glorious boys in blue fighting the snivelling evil that is crime. And we've become so wedded to redneck arguments about crime that anyone the police are against, we are against, leaving us with a no questions asked culture of unaccountability, just like the death of George Harris at the hands of a New Zealand police beating. The aura of power around a police officer allows a cop to walk free from 5 separate allegations of bashings, even when 9 other police testify. Our need to slavishly worship authority is one of our deep cultural faults. Let's end the show by handing out this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week Award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week Award has to go to our sudden increased military involvement in Afghanistan. I don't wish to alarm any of you, but did anyone else notice that we're sending armoured vehicles into our UN-sanctioned jaunt through the great geostrategic chessboard of the planet? Forgive me, folks, but what's the excuse we're in Afghanistan for this week? It was to find Osama bin Laden, and then we couldn't find him, so it was all about finding Al-Qaeda. And then it turned out there wasn't any of them left. And it was then all about finding the Taliban. They found us and have been giving us a hiding for about half a decade. This week's excuse to occupy Afghanistan, of course, is for the woman. That's right, sisters. It's the first war for feminism. Who knew the M16 could also be a path towards gender equality? That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget Citizen A plays Friday, 7:30 p.m, Freeview 21 and Sky 89. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter account and Citizen Bomber Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy out here, though. Righto.